Hello, I'm Scott Fast. I'm Kristen's father. I'm here to talk about my father. My father was Chester Kelly Fast. We call him Chet Fast. He was born in 1919 in a small town in Illinois, and then soon after that he moved to Haviland, Kansas, the western part of Kansas. He grew up as a farmer, tending to a farm with his mother and father, and then soon his younger brother. He was very much an old-time farmer in the 1920s, where Dad attended grade school, middle school, and high school in Haviland, Kansas. The age of 8, 9, 10, he drove himself in a pickup truck to school. In elementary, he rode a horse to school. In high school, he was a basketball star, a football star, very much the athlete. His graduating class, I believe, was 25 students. The whole school was maybe 100 students. They lived a tough life in the 1920s and the early 30s, and tending to farms and doing the farm work at that time in the Dust Bowl, it was known as, and they survived. Dad went on to college in Wichita and attended Wichita State, where he played basketball for the university, the college. And eventually, when 1942-43, when the war broke out, Dad enlisted into the Navy. Dad was recruited under the dispensary category, if you would, the medical corps, and worked in the capacity of providing medicine and medical services to soldiers, Marines, and naval shipmen. I believe my dad entered World War II in 1942, and I believe he was 23 or 24 right at that time. He was born in 1919, so he'd be 23, 24, just after his college career. He served on many battleships and many aircraft carriers throughout the war. He was sunk 3 times, twice on American ships and once on a Japanese ship. Dad was captured I believe soon into the war, a couple years into the war. Dad was on a destroyer and it was sunk. The Japanese picked up all of the combatants, if you would, the soldiers of the U.S. forces, and put them on a Japanese prisoner of war ship, which at the time they didn't mark as a prisoner of war ship. And during the transportation of wherever they were sunk into the Japanese area where they were going to become prisoners, the Americans found it as a Japanese ship, and they attacked it and sank that ship. And my father and his friend, his best friend, were recaptured as they were all sunk and they were swimming. They were recaptured by another Japanese ship and put back into a Japanese prisoner of war ship, and then eventually taken to Japan. Dad and his friends that survived, unfortunately many perished, they served just a little over 3 years in a prisoner of war camp. Many entered in as very strong and very built gentlemen, and during the time my father entered well over 200 pounds and very muscular, and entered the prisoner of war camp eating only rice rations and small amounts of protein whenever, and he left barely over 100 pounds. He was recruited during that time, being in the medical corps. The Japanese understood he was well educated, so they put him in charge of things like the electrical fence that was installed around the outside perimeter of the prisoner camp. He was in charge of medical care of both the prisoners and the Japanese guards and hierarchy, or the commandant, if you would, all the way through there, to provide medical care, band-aids, shots for flu, etc. And he did a lot of services around the camp. It was slightly different over in Japan than it was at home, but he and one of his best friends, who was also in the medical corps, they made do. After the war, he was released. He came home. He served on in the Navy for many, many years, working in Seattle, working in Pensacola, Florida, working eventually in Arlington, and working at the Capitol. He worked at the dispensary, which we think of as a pharmacy now, at the Capitol, and he provided medical care, medicine, assistance to the Senate, the Congress, and those aides inside the Capitol itself. Dad retired from the Navy about 25 years, I believe it was, in total service, and eventually became a educator and taught in school and owned a golf course for a period of time, which he truly loved. And he was very much involved in athletics even at that time.